Ladies and gentlemen, before you scroll past, ask yourself this. Are you here to make a living or to build millions? If you want millions, then stop playing small. Today, I'm going to show you the business skills that make millions, and why most people don't have them. There is a skill that stands above all others, a skill so potent, so central to the game of business, that without it, your ideas are just noise, your product just inventory, your ambition just a dream. That skill is sales, not marketing, not branding, not strategy, sales. Most people don't want to hear that, because it's easier to hide behind design, behind a logo, behind a well-lit social media post. It's easier to convince yourself that if you build something good enough, they will come. No, they won't. The market doesn't care about how good you are. The market responds to how well you can convince it that you matter. Sales is not about convincing people to buy what they don't need. It's about making people feel that what you have solves a problem they can no longer tolerate. That's what closes the gap between indifference and urgency. That's what builds trust. That's what generates revenue. You can't scale what you can't sell. You can't lead if you can't convince. You can't influence if you can't communicate. And you can't win in the marketplace if you're too scared to ask for the close. People get romantic about entrepreneurship. They talk about freedom, about disruption, about changing the world. But business, real business, is built one conversation at a time, one pitch at a time, one rejected phone call at a time. And the people who win, they're not the smartest. They're not the most creative. They're the ones who keep showing up with the offer. You have to understand that attention is the new oil, and conversion is the refinery. You can get all the views, the likes, the followers, but if you can't turn that attention into action, you're wasting your oxygen. The game isn't about being liked. It's about being trusted enough to transact. And trust comes from consistency, clarity, and conviction, not charisma. Every single interaction in business is a sale. You're selling yourself to investors, selling your vision to a team, selling your terms to a supplier, selling your product to a customer, selling your silence to a critic. If you don't master the language of influence, you'll always be at the mercy of those who have. And here's the truth. The reason most people fail in business has nothing to do with capital. It has nothing to do with timing. It has everything to do with the inability to transfer belief. That's what selling is. Transferring belief. If you don't believe deeply enough in what you're offering, no one else ever will. The world doesn't pay you for your potential. It pays you for your execution. And execution means walking into the meeting, knowing exactly how you'll position your offer. It means understanding the psychology of the buyer better than they understand themselves. It means knowing how to close the gap between interest and decision. There's no shortcut here, no template, no hack. You don't master sales by watching motivational videos. You master it by doing the reps. By hearing no so many times it doesn't sting anymore. By adjusting your pitch until it hits. By listening more than you speak. And by learning how to lead people to a place where buying from you is the only logical choice. Business is not about perfection. It's about progress. And progress comes when you stop outsourcing your revenue to chance. When you decide that no matter how good your idea is, it won't matter unless it's sold. Loudly, boldly, unapologetically, if you cannot sell, you will always be dependent. Dependent on luck, dependent on referrals, dependent on exposure. But if you can sell, you can write your own check. You can walk into any room and turn attention into income. You can build, scale, and rebuild again. Because you control the most powerful lever in business. Learn to sell, and everything else becomes negotiable. The mistake most people make is thinking that communication is about talking. They think it's about putting words together in clever sentences, dressing them up in fancy language, and hoping the room nods along. It's not. Communication, real communication, is about intention. It's about impact. If you're not moving minds or shifting emotions, you're just making noise. The problem with most professionals is they speak to inform, not to influence. They talk to be understood, not to be remembered. They hide behind pleasantries, soften their message, and then wonder why no one takes them seriously. Because you cannot inspire people with half-truths and safe language. You don't change lives with politically correct phrases. You change lives when you speak from a place of fire, when every word is selected like a weapon and delivered with the precision of a sniper. This is where the game changes. When you stop speaking to be liked and you start speaking to be felt, when you realize that your message is not for everyone, and that's exactly why it works. The minute you try to please everyone, your voice loses its edge and your message dies in the middle. But the moment you speak with intentionality, knowing exactly what emotion you want to stir, what thought you want to provoke, what decision you want to influence, everything sharpens. People don't remember facts. They remember how you made them feel. They remember the pause before the punchline, the silence that lingered after the truth, the tone that made their chest tighten. That's communication. And if you don't master it, you'll spend your life being misunderstood or ignored. Both are fatal in business. You need to decide, are you here to be heard or are you here to be remembered? Because if it's the latter, then every meeting, every pitch, every conversation becomes a battlefield, not to destroy, but to dominate, not to impress, but to influence. You walk in knowing what impact you want to leave, and you reverse engineer your message to match that outcome. It's not about speaking more. It's about saying what matters, and saying it in a way that slices through the noise. The economy today doesn't reward echo chambers. It rewards originality. It rewards conviction. It rewards clarity. When you speak, the room should lean in. Not because you're loud, but because your words carry weight. Because you've done the inner work to align your intention with your message. Here's what intentional communicators do differently. They listen with the intent to understand before they speak. They don't just hear the words, they read the body language, feel the tension, absorb the unspoken. They communicate to the problem beneath the problem. They speak to the fear no one else is brave enough to name. They call out the elephant in the room, not for shock value, but because truth is more persuasive than tact. In business, communication isn't a soft skill. It's a weapon. You can close deals with the right words. You can de-escalate chaos with the right tone. You can inspire teams to outperform their limits, not with incentives, but with belief. But belief is transferred through words. The wrong ones kill momentum. The right ones create movements. So ask yourself before every conversation, what is the one thing I want to leave behind in the mind of this person? What do I want them to feel when I leave the room? That's your intention. And once you have it, everything else becomes easier. Your tone sharpens. Your examples become more powerful. Your timing becomes tighter. You stop rambling and start directing. You stop sounding unsure and start sounding undeniable. The people who lead industries, movements, organizations, they're not the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who talk with purpose. They don't waste breath. They don't dance around their truth. They don't dilute their message for comfort. They are crystal clear. They are ruthless in their clarity. They are precise because they know that in a noisy world, vague doesn't work. Speak with intent or be forgotten. That's the rule. The rest is decoration. There's a reason most people never build anything worth remembering. It's not that they don't have ideas. It's that they can't focus long enough to execute. They bounce from vision to vision, from concept to concept, chasing excitement instead of building legacy. That's not strategy. That's distraction with good branding. The game of business doesn't reward the loud. It rewards the focused. And the only way to stay focused in a world designed to distract you is to adopt a framework that forces discipline. One that forces you to clarify your thinking, prioritize your actions, and commit to a timeline that demands urgency without sacrificing vision. That's where the 72-12-3 model comes in. It's not theory. It's execution architecture. It separates the talkers from the builders. Start with the 72, the next 72 hours, not next year, not next quarter, the next 72 hours. That's your window to start. Because if you don't start now, you'll never start. Procrastination wears the disguise of preparation. People waste weeks planning what they could start in minutes. The most successful people don't need permission to act. They define the immediate next move and execute, not perfectly, but immediately. What can you build, launch, test, or refine in 72 hours? That's the first real measure of momentum. Then there's the 12. That's your 12-month horizon, 1 year from today. What must be true for this to matter? What does success look like in the context of real results, not vanity metrics? This is where clarity becomes your compass. Because if your 1-year target is vague, your actions will scatter. But if your 1-year outcome is clear, everything in the present becomes a tool, not a distraction. Your meetings change, your conversations shift. Your decisions align. Now zoom out to the 3. That's your 3-year vision, not a dream, a vision. There's a difference. Dreams live in your head. Visions pull you forward. 3 years forces you to think like an architect, not just a hustler. What does the empire look like? What are you building that you're willing to sacrifice comfort for? Most people can't see past the weekend. That's why their impact ends at the paycheck. But those who shape industries, who rewrite history, they think in arcs, not just moments. 3 years forces you to stop reacting and start designing. And then there's the A, the action, the discipline, the non-negotiable commitment to move, because ideas without action are illusions. The difference between the average and the elite is not IQ, it's execution. The world is full of brilliant people with broken momentum, because they're obsessed with getting it perfect instead of getting it done. But progress doesn't wait for perfection. It waits for action. When in doubt, move. You'll learn faster moving than you ever will thinking. This framework becomes the rhythm of performance. It forces alignment across your business, your team, your habits. Everyone knows what needs to happen now, what we're building in the short term, what we're designing in the long term, and what actions we take daily to get there. That's how movements are built. That's how market leaders emerge. That's how you dominate, not participate. You want to know why some businesses scale while others stall. It's not luck. It's not funding. It's focus. Relentless, obsessive focus. Because when your next 72 hours are aligned to your 12-month target, and your 12-month is anchored in a 3-year vision, and your daily actions serve all 3, then your business becomes a machine, not a hustle. A machine, predictable, precise, unstoppable, but it all starts with clarity. Clarity is expensive. It costs comfort. It costs distraction. It costs excuses. You don't arrive at clarity by waiting. You arrive at it by choosing. Choosing what matters now, what matters later, and what doesn't matter at all. The moment you stop trying to do everything is the moment you start building something worth everything. So what's your 72? What are you doing before the week ends? What must you accomplish in the next 12 months that changes your trajectory? What empire are you committed to building in the next 3 years? And what actions are you taking today, not tomorrow, to make that real? Answer that, and then go execute. That's the game. The rest is noise. Too many people in business are still making decisions with their feelings, as if the market cares, as if emotion pays salaries, as if feelings fund growth. They confuse movement with momentum, noise with traction, comfort with progress, and then they wonder why their business is stuck, why the competitors are overtaking them, why they're busy, exhausted, and still broke. This is the part nobody tells you. The higher you go, the more you'll be forced to choose between what feels good and what gets results, because they're rarely the same. Progress doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It doesn't sound like agreement. It doesn't feel safe. It demands you do what's necessary, not what's popular. If you're not willing to be uncomfortable, you're not ready to grow. Emotions lie. Progress doesn't. Emotions will have you defending broken systems because they feel familiar. Progress forces you to kill your darlings. Emotions will tell you to keep the underperformer because they've been with you since the beginning. Progress says either evolve or leave. Emotions want you to be liked. Progress wants you to be respected. You don't scale a business by pleasing people. You scale it by building a machine, measured, precise, and disciplined. Most people never build anything significant because they're too busy managing how they feel instead of managing what needs to be done. They chase energy instead of results. They let mood dictate discipline. And the minute it gets hard, they retreat to comfort zones dressed up as strategy meetings. But meetings don't move the needle, decisions do, execution does, facing the thing you've been avoiding does. You don't have to feel like doing it to do it. That's maturity, that's leadership, that's the shift from emotion to progress. If you only show up when it feels good, you're not building a business, you're playing a hobby. The discipline is doing what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's when everyone else folds, that's where separation happens. Progress demands brutal honesty. You have to audit your people, your systems, your thinking. You have to ask, is this still working, or am I emotionally attached to something that's dead? Too many businesses are dragging corpses. Outdated models, irrelevant offers, redundant processes, because somebody's feelings might get hurt. And then they're surprised when agility becomes impossible. You can't adapt if you're clinging to yesterday. The most dangerous phrase in business is, "This is how we've always done it." That's not culture. That's a trap. Progress is always pushing forward. It doesn't care how things used to be. It asks, what works now, what works better, and how fast can we switch? Even in leadership, especially in leadership, you can't afford to be ruled by emotion. The team doesn't need your mood. They need your clarity. They need decisions, not doubts. If your emotions run the meeting, the business loses direction. If your insecurity dictates your hires, you'll surround yourself with people who protect your ego instead of challenging your thinking. And you'll stay stuck. You want real growth. Stop waiting to feel inspired. Inspiration is a luxury. Progress is a discipline. Build systems that work regardless of how you feel. Set standards that don't bend when you're tired. Make decisions based on data, direction, and discipline, not dopamine. That's how you outlast, outgrow, and outperform the market. And here's the truth. Emotion isn't the enemy. It just isn't the leader. Feelings can signal, but they can't steer. Let them inform, but not decide. There will be days when fear walks into the room dressed like caution, when pride shows up dressed like standards, when fatigue wears the mask of strategy. If you can't see through that, you'll build a business that lives at the mercy of your mood. Progress doesn't care how you feel. It only responds to what you do. The work doesn't adjust to your energy. The market doesn't pause when you're overwhelmed, and success won't wait for your confidence to catch up. You either execute or you watch someone else take your spot. So you've got a choice, comfort or growth. Emotion or execution, validation or velocity. One will make you feel good for now. The other will make you unstoppable forever. Decide, then move, and don't look back.